Will the guests please rise for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the national anthem. The national anthem will be sung by Ensign Jared Davenport. Moored Training Ship 701, arrival. Nuclear Power Training Unit, Charleston, arrival.
See by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the invocation by Chaplain Bell.
Shall we pray? Eternal and gracious God, we stand with bowed down heads and lifted hearts to thank you for this graduating class assembled before us today. Loving Lord, it was you who gave these sailors the grace and grit to dedicate themselves to complete demanding studies, endure ever-changing weekly shifts, and satisfy all necessary requirements needed to qualify to be a nuclear sailor in the fleet. Oh God, we are also piously paused to celebrate the graduation of our Australian sailors who have qualified and completed their training at Prototype, which makes this graduation both happy and historic in the lives of two nations whose destinies are bonded together by shared noble values and a goal to maintain a free and open Indo-Pacific. Today, we can truly say in this case of all of our graduates, you, O Lord, have been the unseen, unfailing, sustaining, potent presence that lifted these sailors when they were down in duress, strengthened them when they were weak and worn, and propelled them not only unto this day, but into the bright, promising future yet ahead. Now, God, as these sailors prepare to go into the fleet, to report to a surface ship above or a submarine below, continue to protect, prosper, and keep them, we pray. And finally, O God, I ask that you graciously remember and bless the families of the sailors who supported them, the instructors and staff who taught them, and the chief and officers who mentored them, who share in the joy of this day with these sailors. All of this we ask in your most precious name. Amen.
Please be. Captain Kep, Ward Training Ship 701 Commanding Officer, Commander Seligowski, Site Command Master Chief Montello, distinguished guests, family and friends, welcome to the Naval Nuclear Power Training Unit Charleston graduation ceremony for Class 2302. I am Commander John Fitzpatrick, the Executive Officer of NPTU, and we are pleased that you could join us as we recognize the sailors who have dedicated so much of their time and effort in this final phase of their training. While we recognize those students who stand out from their peers, it is important to remember that each student dedicated thousands of hours in pursuit of this moment. Today is about the accomplishments of our sailors as they complete the Naval Nuclear Propulsion Training Pipeline. Please join me in a round of applause for our families, friends, and shipmates who have played a large part in our sailors' success. You have our heartfelt thanks. It is now my pleasure to introduce the commanding officer of Moored Training Ship 701, Commander Rob Seligowski. He's a career submariner who was previously the executive officer on USS Albany and is now as commanding officer to her. Commander Seligowski.
Thanks, John. Good morning, Captain Kep, distinguished guests, Class 2302. Congratulations. Today marks an important completion of a challenging career milestone. Welcome, friends and family, to this important day. A great turnout. We appreciate you coming to this. Your ongoing support is essential to the sailors' continued success. Thank you for sharing in their accomplishment and your trust and faith in our Navy. We sit here today in the midst of a great Navy legacy, both past and present. About 80 years ago, the USS Yorktown was operating in the Pacific off the coast of the Gilbert Islands. It was full of action, launching aircraft to suppress enemy air power in support of amphibious landings. Today, we gather in that same hangar bay to recognize the newest generation of sailors. Thank you to the curators of this great ship for their support in connecting Navy's past, present, and future, and providing an historic venue and preserving Navy legacy. I would also like to thank NPTU staff for their unwavering dedication to our program. Unfortunately, most of them aren't able to share in this celebration today because they are hard at work training the next class. Their efforts are instrumental to our Navy's success, and we are grateful for their instruction of Class 2302. Graduates, you should be very proud. The Naval Nuclear Power Training Pipeline you just completed is one of the most rigorous training courses in the United States Navy and arguably the nation. Skills you've developed exceed most civilian technical degrees, and surely no comparison for the practical experience you've gained. I'm exceptionally proud, and it's my honor to speak to the newest nuclear operators. By graduating today, you are completing both a requirement and a mandate that Admiral Rickover, the father of our nuclear Navy, made to Congress over 75 years ago. He promised to train and certify the best sailors in the world to operate nuclear reactors on board aircraft carriers and submarines. Since then, our program has been the model of efficiency and success, steaming over 170 million miles on nuclear power. To put that in perspective, that is over 350 round trips from the Earth to the Moon. Above and below the world's oceans, the United States Navy is the most powerful Navy to ever command the seas. With more than 300 warships, over 80 of those powered by nuclear propulsion, the Navy conducts missions anywhere in the world. The key enabler to operations forward deployed is the strategic advantage gained by nuclear power and people like you. There is no denying you are the strategic advantage. You are the strategic advantage that the country depends on for national defense. The fleet needs you. They are anxiously awaiting your arrival. When you depart today, celebrate your success. You deserve it. And do not forget that your commitment to service is linked to the success of our country, all Americans, yourself included. But with duties of consequence, there will be times you and your shipmates will question why you chose this path. This is normal. Support each other through these low points, and when you're back on top, celebrate and rejoice. Congratulations on your accomplishments. I welcome you to the fleet. Best of luck with your future service, fair winds and following seas. With that, it's my great pleasure to introduce Captain Reed Kep, career submariner, had command of the USS Colorado, now serves as the commanding officer, NPTU Charleston.
Good morning, y'all. Am I the only one a little bit chilly? So I was stationed in Connecticut for a few years, and I was pretty tough. But a couple of years here, my blood has thinned, and so I am a little chilly, I must admit. Hey, well, welcome. So I'm going to echo a few of the things that the captain just talked about, but I do want to welcome our guests, welcome our families. I'm going to spend just a little time giving a few shout outs, maybe a little bit of education before we get on with the ceremony, okay? So first, great job on that national anthem. Ensign Davenport, where you at? So just a little quick story. This is the Navy is very tight, small community, particularly the nuclear community. When I was ensign Kep on my first ship, USS Tennessee, Ensign Davenport's dad was one of my engineering laboratory technicians when I was the Chem Radcon assistant, or CRA. And so he came up and said he wanted to sing the national anthem. And I said, your name looks familiar. And he said, my dad told me that this might happen. So well done. I know your dad couldn't make it today, but always great to connect in some way to a shipmate. So what a small community. Anyway, I wanted to share that story. I just think that was incredible. I loved it. Okay, a few shout outs. I'm going to echo what the captain said. Thank you to the Patriot Point staff. What a great venue, right? This is a great place to send the next generation of sailors out to the fleet. Then the hangar bay of USS Yorktown. What a storied history here on this ship that I won't get into. I would encourage you, now that you got a free pass here today, to take advantage of this museum. What a great place to spend some time. So thank you for that for the staff. We graduate a class of just under 400 sailors and officers about every 8 weeks is when we do this. And so that's our demand signal. About 3,000 sailors, about 600 officers every year. Don't test me on that public math. I know there are some of you nukes and engineers out there that are doing that to me. And so we have a heavy demand signal. So that tells me I need to give a shout out to my staff, which Captain Segalowski already did somewhat. So we have about 1,300 active duty Navy staff, about 350 civilian staff that work for me back on the site. We operate 2 training reactors and a host of high fidelity simulation equipment. We operate 24/7, 365, and yes, that includes on Christmas, to get through this rigorous, challenging academic program so we can equip our folks to do what they signed up to do and to go to their various assignments to the fleet. So thank you to my staff. Let's give them a round of applause. All right. A few more acknowledgments here. So I know there's a lot of you in the crowd. I would love to, if I could recognize, if you're willing and able, if you're a veteran, would you please stand? All right, thank you. One more. If you are a spouse of somebody that's graduating today, if you're willing and able, would you please stand? Hey, thank you so much for what you do. Boy, what an adventure you're about to embark on. I will tell you, it took me a long time of service before I fully appreciated just what role you play. If you get ready to move to ports that can be anywhere from Japan to Connecticut to Kings Bay, Georgia, you're going to support young families that are moving in alongside you as they're going to support you. I've watched and observed just with awe and inspiration that you serve in various capacities and family readiness groups and ombudsmen, to just volunteer your time to support our families and our troops and the surrounding community, and just really embed yourself in different areas of the community and volunteer and serve and work. And it's just it's so incredibly important what you do. So I just wanted to acknowledge you as well. Okay, so thanks for that. Okay, a little bit of education before we get started here. All of you, or many of you, have had some form of teenager in your house, and you want to ask at the dinner table, like, hey, how's things going? What do you do all day? And they're just like, good, right? Everybody ever heard that? That's just me. So I want to give you just a little bit of education on what we do and where your sailors are getting ready to go. So in this group, I'll go through the officers first. So we have groups of surface warfare officers. These are individuals that have already served one division officer tour, nuclear powered surface combatant. They've nuclear training, and they're going to go do their first carrier tour as a JO on the carrier in different carriers around the world. Okay, our submarine officers, mostly ensigns, are getting ready to go to their first submarine assignment. That could be ballistic missile submarines, that could be guided missile submarines, or fast attack submarines that are in extended deployment, could be in a lengthy shipyard availability, but they're going to serve in that capacity. We also qualify many of our officers you see walk across the stage are what we call direct input officers. These are officers that we recruited out of college. They're under a 5-year commitment where they will come get nuclear training, and then they'll stay here and work for me for about 3.5 or 4 years left of their commitment to train the next generation of sailors. So really impressed with what they've been doing for us. And occasionally you'll see a civilian walk through that has went through the same training. So we have about 350 Naval Nuclear Laboratory civilian employees that help our training mission continue, and they go through the same rigorous training program that all our students do, and then they will come back here and work for me, or they'll go work at the other nuclear training site, which is in upstate New York. So we're very grateful for them. Okay, now for the rest of the sailors, where are they going to go? What are they going to do? So their various ratings is what we call them. So one rating is electrician's mate. So our electricians control the electrical load distribution and all the services on our ships, and so we're grateful for them. Our electronics technicians, or reactor operators as we like to call them, do just that. They're in charge of operating our reactor and giving us the power that we need to generate steam for propulsion and to generate our electricity. We also have our nuclear trained mechanics that support all of our propulsion train equipment and other auxiliary services, and from there, a select group of those go through continued training, which will be back at my schoolhouse for a few more weeks, to be what's called engineering laboratory technicians, or ELTs. And they'll be in control of the chemistry of our reactor plant and various systems to make sure that we maintain proper integrity of all of our systems that are operating at high pressures and high temperatures to keep the power demands that we need. So very high level of training for our sailors. Other opportunities they have. Many of them, when they leave here today, they might be going to various schools. Some of them, if they're getting assigned to one of the newer submarines, may be going to a design school. There's a propulsion plant local area network school. That's a mouthful. We call it PP land. Just think IT networking. For those of you that like that, you know what I'm talking about. For those that don't, you don't want to talk about it. And we also have nuclear welders. There's a weld school. A select few may go to dive school at the end of this. And so just lots of schooling opportunities. Some will have put in a request and have been selected for what we call junior staff instructor. So they have to sign a re-enlistment for this, and then that will certify, and then their training here, they'll go through additional certification. They'll come back and work for me for a couple years here as an instructor. So they had to do very well here as a student, and we will hand select them for instructors as well. Some have put in for various officer programs, which are to be commissioned from an enlisted sailor to get an officer commission through the Stay 21 program. Some already have a degree and are applying for the officer candidate school program, and then there's some that have the opportunity to put in for academy through a commission through the U.S. Naval Academy. So lots of opportunities. I'm going to get to the last one, something we call STAR re-enlistment. Okay, selective training re-enlistment, right? And so this is a great opportunity. We've recently updated our Navy policy to give more flexibility to our nuclear trained operators. You're going to see a lot of sailors walk across here with the rank of second-class petty officer. That means they've achieved their nuclear qualifications. They have satisfied the time and rate, and that gives them an opportunity to do what we call STAR re-enlist. automatic advancement to the next pay grade, a very nice financial incentive for that as well, opportunity to receive housing allowance, live out in town on their next assignment. And so we're very proud of them for making that decision, just a great career decision. There's some that have not quite met the time and rate requirements. That's probably because they went to a school that finished a little bit early, but they're on the cusp of that. As they go out to the fleet, they'll meet those requirements. So I encourage you as family, just ask them what that means, what their plans are with that, and just kind of help me keep that narrative going so we can make the right decisions for all of our sailors. We want to open up the best opportunities for our folks to succeed. And just completing this program is a big success in life. And that's what we like to really like to drive home to folks that are coming through the schools is you've signed up for something that's high value. It's awesome for your personal and professional development. It adds a tremendous amount of value to our communities, to our Navy, to our nation. And so it's really just a great opportunity that you've done. I'm very proud of our graduates. I'm very proud of the families for supporting. I'm very proud of you for coming here for this. All right, so that's my education. So now you know a lot, okay? So I was drinking through the fire hose, right? So I'll give you a few minutes of it. They've been doing it for a year and a half or so. That's just the way we deliver it to them all day long. Okay, great. Let me get to know this group here a little bit before we get started, all right? I know it's cold. All right, maybe shake the hands out a little bit. Who thinks they traveled here from the farthest? I'd like to just know, like, who thinks they came here for this is interactive, by the way. Okay, go ahead. California, okay. What's that? Mexico, all right. Portland, Oregon. What else? In the back. I gave one in the back. Germany, all right. Germany, anybody beat Germany? All right, Germany. Woo. I think I just heard somebody yell Texas. That's not farther than Germany. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. CMC's from Texas, so we always like to inject one for Command Master Chief as well. Okay, great. Well, we're about to get on with this. Hey, XO mentioned we want you to take an opportunity to come up here and take a photo. We make plenty of room up here for you, so please come up here for that. Hey, this is fun. This is here for you. You've invested a lot in your sailors. You've invested a lot to travel here for this. I was just talking to them back here before this, and one of the things, they always tell me this, they said, hey, we love when our families like hoop and holler and embarrass us. They love that. That's what they told me. You might not believe it. They say they love to hear things like, that's my sailor. I love they love it. They even like nicknames. I ask that you keep them on like maybe PG level if you're going to do that, okay? So anyway, this day is for you. I'm glad you're here. This should be a lot of fun. And thanks for being here. Let's get on with the ceremony. God bless America.
The Navy League Award, presented by Captain James Lyons, retired, takes pride in recognizing sailors who stand out amongst their peers. Mr. Lyons is the president of the Naval Submarine League Charleston chapter. He is also a retired Navy submariner who is commanding officer of USS James K. Polk and the Naval Satellite Operations Center in Point Mugu, California. Mr. Lyons, please.
Well, good morning and welcome to Charleston. I am a graduate of the Nuclear Power Training Unit of 7502. That's a long time ago. I represent the Naval League and also the Naval Submarine League today. The Navy League was founded with the guidance of President Theodore Roosevelt in 1902, and we are a educational and advocacy and training organization dedicated to the sea services. That's the Navy, the Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and Merchant Marine. And today we have an award, a coin, and also a certificate, $25 certificate, for the top graduate who qualified the earliest in the training program today.
Thank you, sir. MMN 3, Joshua Wilk. The Commanding Officer's Personal Excellence Award is presented to the sailor chosen from each crew who exhibits the greatest degree of professionalism. Selection criteria for this award takes into consideration student effort, motivation, adaptability, personal development, and performance of duty. Following sailors are the winner of the Commanding Officer's Personal Excellence Award for MTS 701. ETN 3, Carlo Yunt Pacheco. ETN 2, Noah King. MMN 3, Joshua Wilk. MMN 3, Rory Searag. And MMN 2, Carter Winberg. And now, Class 2302, time that you've been waiting for. All right, Ensign Matthew Afshin, headed to USS Alexandria. ETN 3, Jordan Alexander, headed to USS George Washington. MMN 3, Samuel Anderson, headed to ELT school. Ensign Edward Angelinas, headed to USS Seawolf. ETN 2, Constantine Angelos, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit, Idaho. EMN 2, Timothy Apodaca, headed to USS Nebraska, Blue. ETN 2, Andres Aroja, headed to USS Nebraska, Gold. Ensign Reese Asado, headed to USS Charlotte. EMN 2, Xavier Ayers, headed to USS Abraham Lincoln. EMN 2, Emily Batista, headed to USS Michigan, Blue. MMN 3, Xander Belknap, headed to ELT school. MMN 3, Drew Bennett, headed to ELT school. ETN 3, Dustin Bernal, headed to USS Ronald Reagan. ETN 3, Justin Bernal, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit, Arkansas. EMN 3, Evan Billmeyer, headed to USS Rhode Island. EMN 3, Aaron Boone, headed to USS Minnesota. MMN 3, Stephen Boudreau, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit, John F. Kennedy. ETN 3, Daniel Bright, headed to USS Alaska. ETN 2, Nathan Bright, headed to USS George Washington. EMN 3 John Burkhammer, headed to USS Albany. MMN 3 Richard Burnham, headed to USS Virginia. EMN 2 George Burns, headed to USS Seawolf. MMN 3 James Butler, headed to USS Alexandria. MMN 3 Mozart Casas, headed to USS Theodore Roosevelt. MMN 3 Terry Casella, headed to USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. ETN 2 Carrick Casagnol, headed to USS Montpelier. Ensign Thomas Childers, headed to USS Scranton. Ensign Alexander Clark, headed to USS North Carolina. Lieutenant Junior Grade Connor Cogdill, headed to USS Theodore Roosevelt. ETN 3 Jackson Colliver, headed to USS Gerald R. Ford. MMN 3 Zion Combs, headed to USS North Dakota. EMN 3 Chase Coda, headed to USS Henry M. Jackson. EMN 3 Ryan Chrismond, headed to USS Nimitz. MMN 3 Hunter DeMoore, headed to ELT school. Ensign Jared Davenport, headed to USS Alaska. MMN 3 Logan Day, headed to USS California. Ensign Olivia Dodge, headed to USS Nebraska Gold. Ensign Margaret Daubman, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit, New Jersey. ETN 2 Ava Dirk, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit, New Jersey. MMN 3 Aiden Eaton, headed to USS George Washington. EMN 2 Riley Edge, headed to USS Rhode Island. MMN 3 Teague Elsie, headed to USS Carl Vinson. MMN 3 Adolfo Espejel, headed to USS George H.W. Bush. EMN 3 Will Flower, headed to USS Asheville. EMN 2 Brian Folsoon, headed to USS George Washington. EMN 3 Grayson Galland, headed to USS Carl Vinson. 111? All right. Who? Gag. Okay. EMN 3 Luke Gag, headed to USS Abraham Lincoln. My apologies. EMN 3 Grayson Galland, headed to USS Carl Vinson. We got it right that time. EMN 3 Sabino Garcia Dominguez, headed to USS Jefferson City. MMN 3 Keith Garlip, headed to USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. EMN 2 Andrew Guerin, headed to USS Nimitz. MMN 3 Connor Gayson, headed to USS Albany. Lieutenant Junior Grade Lucas Goodson, headed to USS Gerald R. Ford. MMN 3 Cypress Goodwin, headed to USS Minnesota. EMN 2 Nathaniel Gray, headed to USS Scranton. MMN 2 Sean Gunnels, headed to USS Rhode Island. ETN 2 Leonard Gutierrez, headed to USS Carl Vinton. EMN 3 Trey Hawkins, headed to USS George Washington. EMN 3 Jeremiah Hayes, remaining here for commissioning program. EMN 2 Ulysses Hernandez Navarez, headed to USS Theodore Roosevelt. MMN 3 Reagan Hicks, headed to USS Carl Vinson. MMN 3 Tyler Hoschel, headed to ELT school. Ensign Max Hoisington, headed to USS Asheville. EMN 3 Scott Jurdon, headed to USS George Bush. EMN 3 Trenton Jordan, headed to USS West Virginia. MMN 3 Kyle Kane, headed to ELT school. Lieutenant Junior Grade Jacob Kang, headed to USS Gerald R. Ford. Ensign Josie Kilburn, headed to USS Iowa. Lieutenant Junior Grade Emma Knapp, headed to USS Nimitz. MMN 3 Ian Knoller, headed to ELT school. ETN 3 Cole Cook, headed to USS Helena. Lieutenant Junior Grade Chelsea Krug, headed to USS John C. Stennis. Ensign Nicholas Langenfeld, headed to USS Indiana. ETN 3 Benjamin Laughlin, headed to USS Nebraska. ETN 2 Min Lay, headed to USS Springfield. Ensign Clifford LeCroy, headed to USS Rhode Island Gold. MMN 3 Logan Lee, headed to USS Ronald Reagan. Lieutenant Junior Grade Sophie Likas, headed to USS Wyoming. MMN 2 Elias Leon Lopez, headed to USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. ETN 2 Jasmine Leshevsky, headed to USS Georgia Blue. MMN 3 Anisha Leva, headed to ELT school. Ensign David Lopez, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit, Massachusetts. MMN 3 Anthony Mancini, headed to USS Virginia. EMN 3 Aiden Maney, headed to USS George Washington. MMN 3 Christopher Marrero, headed to USS George H.W. Bush. EMN 2 Alexi Martinson, headed to USS Gerald R. Ford. EMN 3 Kenneth McCord, headed to USS Vermont. MMN 3 Grace McCracken, headed to USS Ronald Reagan. EMN 3 Pierce McLay, headed to USS Harry S. Truman. EMN 2 Joshua McFetridge, headed to USS Indiana. ETN 3 Tyrone Moore, headed to USS Kentucky. MMN 3 Megan Morris, headed to USS Wyoming. MN 3 Aiden Mousseau, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit John F. Kennedy. MMN 3 Emmanuel Murillo, headed to USS South Dakota. ETN 3 Brandon Nell, headed to USS Florida. EMN 3 Jonathan Ng, headed to USS George H.W. Bush. Ensign Dominic Nocera, headed to USS Florida, Blue. MMN 3 William O'Bannon, headed to USS Washington. Pardon the interruption. ETN 3 Benjamin Olmsted, headed to USS Harry S. Truman. EMN 3 Michael O'Rourke, headed to USS Springfield. Lieutenant Junior Grade Cameron Ott Bales, headed to USS Nimitz. ETN 3 William Pacino, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit Idaho. MMN 3 Eric Pena, headed to USS Greenville. MMN 3 Casey Pennington, headed to USS Ronald Reagan. No, where's Payne? For Peters? All right. MMN 3 Xavier Peters, headed to ELT school. ELT school. MMN 3 Dylan Phillips, headed to USS Harry S. Truman. MMN 3 Jared Pitcher, headed to USS George Washington. Ensign Isaac Pleat, headed to USS Iowa. EMN 3 Robert Polster, headed to USS Maryland. Lieutenant Junior Grade Abraham Ponce, headed to USS Ronald Reagan. ETN 3 Ethan Prince, headed to USS Theodore Roosevelt. MMN 3 Rocky Puffer, headed to USS George Washington. ETN 3 Ronald Resch, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit, Massachusetts. ETN 2 Marion Rico, headed to USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. EMN 3 Anthony Rivera, headed to USS Theodore Roosevelt. MMN 3 Jasmine Rodriguez, headed to USS John C. Stennis. MMN 3 Nathaniel Romero, headed to ELT school. MMN 3 Bodekaya Sagarsi, headed to USS Ronald Reagan. MMN 3 Jacob Sanchez, headed to ELT school. MMN FN Victor Sanchez, headed to USS Hampton. EMN 3 Hunter Schneider, headed to USS North Dakota. EMN 3 Benjamin Scott, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit, Utah. MMN 3 Brady Segovia, headed to USS Pasadena. EMN 3 Joshua Surrock, headed to USS Theodore Roosevelt. EMN 3 Alexander Shannon, headed to USS Harry S. Truman. ETN 3 Deshaun Shaughnessy, headed to USS Abraham Lincoln. ETN 3 Luke Schultz, headed to USS Connecticut. EMN 3 John Sims, remaining at NPTU Charleston as a junior staff instructor. EMN 3 Damon Smith, headed to USS George H.W. Bush. MMN 3 Trevor Smith, headed to ELT school. ETN 2 Jonan Smoot, headed to USS Greenville. MMN3 Julian Soriano, headed to ELT School. Mr. Zachary Sparger, remaining at NPTU Charleston as an instructor. MMN3 Zachary Speedy, headed to USS Carl Vinson. EMN3 Craig Stanley, headed to USS George H.W. Bush. MMN3 Cameron Stillman, headed to ELT School. MMN3 Andrew Stoll, headed to ELT School. EMN3 Samuel Strahl, headed to USS Harry S. Truman. MMN3 Daniel Suggs, headed to USS Tennessee. Ensign Justin Sue, headed to USS Minnesota. Ensign Paul Sullivan, headed to USS Missouri. Ensign Jacob Talley, headed to USS Michigan Gold. ETN2 Chase Teasley, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit John F. Kennedy. MMN3 Oscar Tenbush, headed to USS Gerald R. Ford. Lieutenant Junior Grade Dean Testerman, headed to USS Pasadena. EMN3 Patrick Thompson, headed to USS George H.W. Bush. EMN2 Nolan Thurman, headed to USS Rhode Island. EMN2 Jonathan Tim, headed to USS Seawolf. MMN3 Xander Valterra, headed to ELT School. ETN3 Marcus Vasquez, headed to USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. MMN2 Nathaniel Velez Lopez, headed to USS Harry S. Truman. Lieutenant Junior Grade Lindsay Verico, headed to USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. ETN2 Cameron Villanova, headed to Pre-Commissioning Unit Idaho. EMN3 Manson Vinson, headed to USS Carl Vinson. ETN3 Bradley Vint, headed to USS San Juan. Ensign Raymond Vong, headed to USS Pennsylvania Gold. EMN3 Hunter Warder, headed to USS Maine. MMN3 Damone Warren, headed to USS Harry S. Truman. MMN3 Jamie Wirt, headed to USS Carl Vinson. Ensign Charles White, headed to USS Columbia. MMN-3 Nico Wiley, headed to USS Carl Vinson. ETN-3 Kai Williams, headed to USS John C. Stennis. ETN-3 David Wilson, headed to USS Carl Vinson. Ensign Miles Wilson, headed to USS Hartford. ETN-2 Nathaniel Woods, headed to USS Nimitz. MMN-3 Alexander Wyman, headed to ELT school. Please give a round of applause for all of our graduates. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing while Chaplain Brady delivers the benediction.
Eternal and gracious God, we pause to thank you as we prepare to leave this place. Go with us and our graduates. Let your loving presence always be surrounding us, and let us know that you are the source of our strength and the strength of our life. Help us to live forever in continued praise. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, following the ceremony, Captain Kep will re-enlist a pretty significant number of sailors in a group ceremony in Hangar Bay 1, which is all the way forward on this hangar bay if you go that way on the ship. Friends and family who wish to be part of that ceremony, please proceed that way after I have dismissed the command. Once again, congratulations to the graduates, and thank you, family, friends, and shipmates for being here today. On behalf of the commanding officer, technical director, and site command master chief, I wish you all fair winds and following seas. NPTU Charleston, attention, dismissed.